We only have the one item on tonight's agenda, so hopefully it'll be an informative but short meeting so we can get home, watch Chiefs game. The item tonight is speed limits. We've had, as you know, historically we've had a couple of requests in different areas of town, and so we thought we'd ask our resident expert to give us an update on that, so I'll turn to Mr. Fearborn.
Me not being the resident expert, the experts are sitting at the end of the table. I did want to let the council know ahead of time, kind of operating with an administrative skeletal crew all weekend tonight. Mr. Murdoch is in Europe for a long planned vacation there, and Miss Harmer actually fainted last night at her home and fell and split her head open. Otherwise, she'd be here tonight running the camera. Instead, IT has volunteered to be here. So keep our traveler, yeah, she's okay. As you know, she has a very thick head of hair and there was a lot of blood in it. So she's been talking all day about when she can get into the shower to get all the blood out of it. And she's probably watching right now, so I'll be getting a text here in just a minute. Anyway, Mr. Kratz is here to present. As the mayor had indicated, we have had a number of recent requests, kind of one at a time, for changes to speed limits in various locations in the city. So I thought it would be valuable to just kind of have Mr. Kratz inform on the methods and the process that go in and the standards that go into setting speed limits in the city and the things that we actually look at and the rules we have to follow. So with that, Mr. Kratz.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Yeah, Mr. Fearborn has kind of tasked Trent and I to do a kind of 50,000-foot overview for speed limits. And one of the interesting things we found that setting a speed limits kind of predates the automobile by 200 years. Newport, Rhode Island at one time prohibited horses from galloping on major thoroughfares to protect pedestrians. Boston, Massachusetts limited horse-drawn carriages to a foot pace on Sundays to protect churchgoers. So dealing with speed with various vehicles has been quite a while for agencies. So there's a couple of different ways that speed limits are established. Here in Raymore, we have statutory speed limits. Within city code, it says you can't drive at a rate more than 25 miles an hour on any street unless it's posted differently. Within the transportation master plan that council adopted, collector streets have a 35 mile an hour speed limit, and arterials have 40 and 45 miles an hour speed limits. Those roads are designed for traffic to go at those speeds. The challenge becomes drivers don't pay attention to the speed limit signs. They drive on the road for what they feel comfortable. If there's things that aren't making them uncomfortable driving, they will naturally kind of gravitate to what's referred to as, from the engineering approach, the 85th percentile. And that is the speed at which 85% of the vehicles traveling on a given road through a point that you're measuring drive. That they will be driving at or below that speed. And you kind of see it here on the curve. This is an 85th percentile curve that what it shows is, North Madison is posted at 35 miles an hour. Well, what you see here is less than 25% of the people driving that are driving at that speed limit. What you have is 85% of the traveling public is traveling at 40 miles an hour. Is that the road is safe, the road is wide, there's not a lot of driveways, there's not a lot of things to obstruct parked cars, those type of things, so folks are comfortable driving on that speed. We've also got a number of speed studies that we've done, and you see, Lucy Webb and Madison, where it's posted 35, it's 85th percentile was 39. This one was a little more excessive of that, and this is actually just because we want to compare what data does our traffic counters gather versus what is This is actually from the speed trailer. And so you can see we're seeing comparable data when they put the speed limit out. So one of the balancing acts things you have to do is kind of balance what is safe on the road and not become a burden for enforcement. And so what we look at there is we have a traffic calming policy. It identifies speeding as a problem if the 85th percentile is 10 miles an hour or more over the posted speed. So you can see we had an issue here, and we also have an issue on Hampstead. Now, where we put the traffic counters here, it's kind of an open area and downhill. If there's a gap between where houses are in Creekmore, then there's a gap where there'll be a couple of cul-de-sacs going north to the lake, and then it gets back into the area that's developed. But we did note this, and we shared that with Chief Wilson as a problem area as well as this. So that's kind of what we engineers would recommend, especially when you're seeing roads where it's safe. It's kind of the glass is too small, or it's not the right size glass. We're not recommending that. What we're recommending is we think there's a threshold where people are driving reasonably safe that doesn't burden the police department with a lot of enforcement. We're not seeing accidents. We're not seeing pedestrian conflicts. We're not seeing any of that in these areas. So what we're recommending from our side is we'll if we get a complaint, we'll monitor it and kind of share that information with the law enforcement. Now, one of the things we did find that does have some history and some data behind it for kind of pushing people with the 85th percentile towards the speed limit are the feedback signs that I think we bought 2 of those. Pardon?
More than that.
Okay, but there is some data that those do have some effect on the speed. And that versus, enforcement. So we're not really recommending raising speed limits or lowering speed limits, because folks just drive what they feel comfortable. And that kind of concludes our presentation, sir.
A couple of the items that staff would note, especially relative to the 2 most recent voiced concerns. One was on the concern you all heard, which was 58 Highway east of J, and that request was that there were conflicts with the driveway entrance, and the request was to lower the speed limit from the existing 55 to 35 or 40 is, I believe, exactly what she said in front of the council. The second one is on Madison for an individual who is concerned about vehicles speeding on Madison and would like to see Madison lowered from its current speed limit to 25 and 15 miles per hour in the 400 block of Madison. We attribute both of these not so much to speeding, but to drastically increased volumes of traffic on the roads of Raymore, which, especially when you're dealing with folks complaining about, I can't get out of my driveway, and in the case of Madison, I can't walk across the street to the post office or to the post box that's across the street. Those are more volume issues. We did some turning movements in the driveway on 58 Highway, and there is no way that individual with the rig, and I'll call it the rig, with the horse trailer and the extended pickup that they can't get out of the driveway as it exists without needing to use both lanes. Either way, if they're turning right, they go into the eastbound lane. Obviously, it's a long pull to get out of there into the eastbound lane themselves. So if they're turning either way, their turning movements are going to block traffic for a considerable amount of time. It's not a speed issue there, it's a volume issue. The count out there is over 4,000 cars a day. The count on Madison is about 2,000 cars a day. That is considerably more than it used to be on both of those particular roads. So we would attribute it to that. The other item that we'd like the council just to be reminded of is we set the speed limit according to national standards. As Mr. Kraft started this with, there is the 85th percentile that is not going to change because of signage. We are limited in enforcement ability throughout the city. We try to focus on problem areas and the school zones especially, with the limited manpower that we do have. The staff would remind the council to be very hesitant in roads that have thousands of travelers a day. When you receive a single complaint or concern, that you try to address that concern, because the backlash may be more than anybody wants on their shoulders in a case like that. That would conclude staff report on this item, and we're welcome to answer any questions.
All right, I'll open it up for any questions that anyone might have. Mr. Barber?
Yeah, I got a question about school zone. The Eagle Glen, that school zone is like 15 miles an hour or something, or 20 miles an hour. Everything else is 25. And I also had a question, maybe a suggestion. I think school zone should be 25 all day long. Doesn't matter about the time. It gets people acclimated to slow down through the school zones. I myself catch myself because of the time zone. Is there any studies on that, or why do we have certain times that we knock the speed down we're on the school zones and other times we don't?
I think we did that because it's just historic the way we've done it. If you ask me a reason, it's because the kids aren't out on the sidewalks other than at bell times. There's no real statutory guidance for school zones. It's typically you post it. The practice, or the best practice, is you post the road 10 miles below the posted speed limit. So at Eagle Glen, there's, I think, Fox Ridge is 35, and so the school speed limit is 25. Same way with because it drops down. It drops down. Well, we did that because the speed limit changes once you get into the developed area. So you wanted both northbound, southbound, northbound, southbound Fox Ridge to match. And then you've got Johnston, which is a 25 mile an hour road. So that's why it's 15 there. Creekmore Elementary, the speed limit is 35 on Fox Ridge, so the guidance is 10 miles an hour less. So then that brought about the 25 mile an hour speed limit. But there's nothing preventing council. Those are all codified by ordinance. So if you wanted to remove the bell times, it would take an ordinance and a vote of the city council to do that.
And I think if you was to go over by the other schools, Raymore Elementary, and then the one up in Remington, I think you would probably see that the bell times, the traffic is increased by a whole bunch, not counting us being there as well.
I would also add, when you're thinking about weekends, and let's use Raymore Elementary and my statement about consider the backlash, people trying to get to Recreation Park on a Saturday morning having to slow down to 15 miles an hour because that's the constant time on that, you will probably hear from some folks.
Yeah. David?
We kind of have a two-part. One, do we have, would you say we have a speeding problem in Raymore? Or do you have difficulty getting people to maintain the speed besides, Gasoline Alley, which I know about, but.
So When we're complaint generated, when I get a complaint, we go to where the complaint is located. Either we go and we only have a few moments in a marked police car to be in that area, because then the gig's up. Everybody's on their phones telling everybody else, hey, the police are here. So we have a little bit of enforcement time, and it's complaint generated, and then we option it out. Sometimes we'll put the traffic trailer there for a week or two, and then directly right after that, then we'll put a week of enforcement, officers there. So.
Then my second part, it almost sounds like with the percentile, we kind of base our speed limit based on what people are willing to do. So we're almost giving people, we're congratulating them for speeding almost. Like, oh, everybody speeds through here, let's bump it up. Or is that, am I misunderstanding that a
No,
little bit?
we set the speed limit. The point of that one is, the speed limit's 25. If somebody's going over that, and over that is the 85th percentile, we're not setting our speed limit signs according to what we think people are comfortable with. They're just going to drive what they're comfortable with, regardless of what the speed limit signs say.
Well, the only time they're real comfortable is when they see a marked unit in that same area.
Do you have anything?
And even to the point of Mr. Kraft bringing up the traffic trailer, that one in the yellow, even with a flashing sign out there that, hey, you're going over the speed limit, they're still going to be comfortable, kind of even with the marked units, they're going to be comfortable going over the speed limit. They're going to ignore it.
So tonight's meeting was information only, really. I mean, just kind of tell you about how the speed limits are conceived, how they're enforced, and I think our volume, the volume of our traffic these days probably does give the perception that there's a potential speeding issue, but I know the PD, I see them out all the time. I go into other communities and I do not see the kind of display of law enforcement out there like I see here in our town. So I feel confident that there is an issue, but there's an issue in every community. Jimmy, did you have something?
I just wanted to thank the council for the additional radar signs. I mean, we have the radar trailer now at the police department, but that's on a schedule. So if the 4 of you are wanting the trailer, the 3 of you have to wait until, the week or 2 weeks that he has it. So it's really going to help us in the long run. We're going to be able to hit more parts of the city and take care of some of those complaints and identify if there's a problem or not.
And the more I'm researching those, the amount of data that those collect, even compared to the turtles that we put out on the street and the trailer that we have now, is phenomenal. So it'll help us in all that kind of analysis.
Mr. Townsend?
Were those mobile, or I thought they were just,
They're mobile.
so we can affix them to a sign for a period and relocate
Exactly.
them, redeploy them?
And
Okay.
we don't have to worry about battery life because they're solar powered and.
Okay. I couldn't remember if they were mobile or not. Thank you.
Yeah, Sonia?
Just a quick question. So you mentioned when we have a place where we have the 85th percentile that's higher than 10 miles per hour over the speed limit, that's kind of when we employ those traffic calming measures, including the trailer we're talking about that lets people know they're driving too fast. What other options are there? So from my point of view, when someone calls and says, people are driving way too fast out here, and we're verifying our speed limits are as they are, they're safe, what else can we offer to people?
The latest, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in the past, lots of times people have said speed bumps or, those sorts of things. So let's just go there for a minute.
Speed bumps are in the tool. Go ahead, Mike.
One of the, I'm sorry, a lot of the areas where we're getting the complaints on speeding are collector and arterial roads or neighborhood collector roads. And by policy, that's not, speed humps aren't appropriate at those locations. What speed humps are appropriate for is if you've got cut-through traffic like we were dealing with in Timber Trails, it's to slow the traffic down and divert it back to where it belongs because it's uncomfortable for people to drive on it. And I think folks have a misconception about this speed humps, speed bumps. You don't just put in a single, there's actually some math behind it. And so you don't just put in a single speed hump to control speed. There's a series of them. And I'll let Mr. Fearborn talk about the liability in law enforcement and South Metro, but there's some real issues with speed humps and safety, snow removal, and those type of things.
There's a liability for public safety, and South Metro, especially if it's on a collector where they're going to be picking up speed, South Metro asks that we not do speed humps of any kind, of any duration. They tell us the story that, especially in the ambulances, if they know that they are on a road where there's a speed hump involved, they're not even allowed to be putting intravenous lines in somebody's arm until they get off the road that has the speed hump on it. So there are a lot of liabilities there. If it's a collector road and they are on the move making a call with their lights on, those are big trucks that are going very fast. You're asking them to either slow down for the speed hump or incur the liability of hitting that thing full on. We have a little bit of problem from a cost standpoint because no matter how hard you mark them, and if you've never been in one of the big dump trucks, trying to see the markings for the speed humps, if they're on either side, is a little bit difficult when you're pushing snow. And if you hit one of those with a blade, it's goodbye blade.
So are there other alternatives we can offer?
The Creekmore issue, we're looking at some additional signage, permanent signage to go. We also like to look at issues where there are other contributing factors. I'll go back to the Creekmore issue. It is the primary area of speed that gets talked about up there is also on a uphill with a blind turn. It's a soft turn, but because of the geography of it, you're either going up or down a hill that makes it a blind. So some advanced signage to items, some radar signage that it's going to be enforced in areas that are continued problem areas after we have had a police presence is a real possibility. Stop signs tend to actually increase the problem. And education for folks about perception, especially with larger vehicles. People think that larger vehicles are actually going faster than our data would seem to show, but it feels like they're going fast because they're bigger vehicles, especially if you're a walker. So education, signage, on some roads, the possibility of choking down the road, the possibility of medians being used. For other traffic problems, we think, for example, on Fox Ridge, that the curb that we put in on Fox Ridge at 58 there, between the Dairy Queen and the Walgreens, has had a significant impact on people misusing the turn lanes up there, specifically going the wrong way in a turn lane. All of those, I think, are a help. It's tough to educate drivers to be uncomfortable when they're not. One of the biggest traffic calming measures in the city is the median on Fox Ridge. And you hear from people all the time, either complaining that Fox Ridge is still too fast, even with the median, or complaining about the median choking the lanes down too tight. So you kind of get both ends of it when you do both of them. You got people wanting that particular median taken out so that the entire thing can be 3 lanes. I guarantee that would cause some speeding issues on Fox Ridge.
Yeah. Good point. Mr. Burke.
Thank you.
Did you have something, Jim?
Okay.
Hold on just a second.
And they can reach out to me as well. I mean, if the trailer is available, or if I have officers up there, being the first contact, that may help as well. Oftentimes, people say they report it, but, you know, that's not quite always accurate. Maybe they told their neighbor who said that they were going to report it, something like that. And we also have report a concern on the city website. I do those quite often, and I answer those and try to get folks out in those areas that, when they request traffic enforcement.
Mr. Burke?
Thanks. I know a few years back, I looked at putting some money into the budget, looking at Sunset and some of this speed, what kind of traffic calming study, and it sounds like a lot of what we're hearing here is probably what was gathered. Was there anything that was determined that might be helpful on a road like that one, or by Eagle Glen, or other places that are large?
Sunset could benefit from being choked down considerably. South Sunset could benefit from being choked down a lot. I suspect that you all would hear when we did that. We are already we hear a lot about the preliminary presentation we gave you all with possibly sometime in the future choking down 58 Highway in the S-curve. We had a lot of feedback on that over the course of about 6 or 7 weeks right after that presentation, with people who were very upset about that possibility, interestingly enough. We thought that would solve multiple traffic issues and safety issues in there if we look at, and again, that's for the future, but we heard a lot of feedback and most of it was negative on doing something like that. I suspect the residents down there would be, it's always a 50-50 split. People who get it and want the public safety, and people who get it and they just want to be able to get home quick.
I think I get the same kind of feedback when I'm driving the speed limit, although I helped PD this summer by driving the speed limit through the lake.
Anyone else? Well, thank you all for your indulgence this evening. We move on to other, the only thing I had to add tonight is, I don't know if you heard me this morning, but I was on KCUR radio kind of giving a point-counterpoint thing to Mayor Lucas's broadcast last week. So I don't know if they'll put that out there. It was about a 12-minute segment. Tried to cram as much information as I possibly could to talk about Raymore's side and the South Kansas City residents' side of the story. So if you get a chance, try to catch that. As you know, Melissa couldn't go with me and choke me down because she was at home. But she said I did a good job covering what I could in 12 minutes. So it was, but it was good. I was able to get out some of the misperceptions, particularly on Mayor Lucas's part, where he started that letter talking about them already being in Cass County at that location, and not the case at all. They are KCR, NPR radio with Steve Kraske, his radio show. Anybody else have anything?
Me, sir.
Yes, Mr. Phillips.
Did want to let the council know that we were able to meet with Mark. Mark scheduled a very quick meeting for us on the I-49 issue. So we met with Mark, City of Belton, and MoDOT. The commissioners had intended to be there, but something must have come up. They couldn't be in attendance. I'm going to call it a frustrating meeting. MoDOT seemed very unwilling to even talk with us about it. They started by giving a justification of why it was originally going down to North Cass Parkway, and then proceeded to talk about all of their reasons for taking that away. We tried to bring home the point that there are no other projects in place that they have cut the scope of services by 50%. They've moved some back, and they talked about the 6 that they had moved back in time, but none of those were cut in the scope of services. The next steps are the Highway Commission who were the ones who ultimately took their recommendation to cut the project. And we also learned that 50% of MoDOT was all in favor of keeping North Gas Parkway. 50% of MoDOT, the decision makers, without any consultation with the stakeholders, which was our other complaint, just went ahead and made the recommendation to cut the project. The Highway Commission actually meets around the state. They only have one meeting a year, actually in Jefferson City. It so happens that on December 6th, the commission is meeting at the Kaufman Foundation for the regional meeting. So we are already planning the attendance at that meeting and who will speak. We have 10 minutes on the topic, and we are hoping to have the mayor, Todd Crass, the mayor from Belton, Van Trust, and the presiding commissioner, and now Congressman Alford would like to speak. When we briefed him on Friday, and he is, I think, very upset about the fact that they cut this. So there will be some good voices. To be statesmanlike, today I did inform MoDOT that they will have a lineup at that meeting. The individual from MoDOT who we were speaking with is very impassive. He just kind of, there's no expression on his face, there's no acknowledgement of what you're saying. So I'll just kind of let that flow over him, and we'll see him on the 6th, I'm sure. Just wanted to let you all know.
Is there any format for submitting written comments to them via letter?
Mr. Kraus, do you know? I would imagine they're going to be getting some letters
As they should.
once this becomes public.
Yes.
I think as we coordinate more with Mark, when the review of the STIP comes up again next year, would be the time to start writing the letters. Hopefully they will publish that this time, so we know that they're getting ready to review it, but it seems like they adopt it in June, July. So at some point in time before that, they'll talk about it, and we'll keep an eye on the late spring, early summer agendas for the Highway Commission.
Okay.
We very much feel that Mark is trying to be a partner with us on this. We would not have gotten into MoDOT in 1 week if Mark hadn't invested themselves in this.
What, the KC 2050, Connect 2050, Mark survey and public comments that's going on right now, would that be opportunity for the community to kind of precede comments?
That's more, I don't know that Connect 2050 is as much as the other plan. They've got like three of them.
This doesn't drill down to project level, it's more
yeah.
broad scope.
Right.
Got it. That as an idea, if the community was to, in that forum, speak to the broader long range, hey, this is an issue for us, and then again, more detail specifically to that project
I think also the time to do that, as when they programmed originally through Mark, I-49, and they've got a lot of comments and told us to quit sending comments. MoDOT did make, I believe they made a commitment today to and Ron from Mark suggested that we start looking at programming the interchange. And again, that would be another time to start the grassroots comment campaign again as well.
The tenor of the conversation today was it either needs to continue down to North Cass Parkway, or if you're insistent that it stops here, you got to program the interchange at the exact same time. Because, as Mr. Crass so eloquently put it this afternoon, they're going to be pulling the stopper out of the bottle and pouring everything at once at 58. And that bridge is going to fail. If everything gets down there quick, and they openly admit 1,500 cars a day get off at 58. We mentioned it, they just stood there staring at us, sir. Yep. Going both ways with Honeywell
One guy,
expanding.
Jeff Hardy, let's just name him there.
Yeah.
That's the guy that has the deer in the headlights look when you're trying to talk to him.
Matt Killing was the lieutenant who's for this. Jeff Hardy is the lieutenant who got it killed.
And we actually have a pretty good relationship with Matt. Matt has been, he was our regional director, and now he's,
Also, the district engineer, Jill Bruss, she worked with us
Yes.
on the Hubach Hill issues. Well, she lives in the area here. She is very aware, and she was taking the professional engineer's exam, where I think she would have been there to voice some concerns about truncating the project as well, at least based on conversations I've had with her.
did you have something, Jeff?
Just that I find it ironic, and take no offense, Mr. Krass, but a group of highly educated engineers who will use mathematics and statistics to put in roundabouts on 58 highway because there were fatality collisions. Sounds sensible reasoning, right? Sensible reasoning. You can pinpoint to the specific location and the cause. Same thing happens out here on 49 highway, and they can't see the causal factor there. I can see it. Everybody in this room can see it. They think it is a quality of life issue, which part of it is. But there is also a huge public safety component to this, which they're sworn to uphold to protect, and they're ignoring. I find that ironic.
Anyone else? Anything else?
That is awesome.
All right. Well, thank you all. Have a good evening and enjoy the game. Pardon me? No, we're not going to be going into
There'll be
that.
no
We're
executive
kind of
session.
shorthanded tonight.
Yeah, the chief